Let's see if that helps at all with the light. So it looks like it sleeps 2, 4, 5 people. That's really a small area up there. There's the engine room door. Big heavy beams holding this very heavy vessel together. Built by the Scansea Shipbuilding Company in Gig Harbor. Let me reach over and get a light here for the engine room. There we go. That might help a little bit. Let's go back now. So, Caterpillar D343, 330 horse. This was an old sonar that they used for finding the I forget what the small fish were they were trying to find. It never did work quite right. So I have to look at getting that out of here. It has 3 hydraulic pumps on her. There's 1 here, 2 here, 3 there, and then air from the air compressor goes in and blows up this clutch boot and engages the hydraulic pumps. This is the air compressor. Looks like a lightweight oil in it. I believe this has 90 weight in it. I'll have to check and see. This gearbox here. The hydraulic oil for those 3 pumps is in this tank and in this tank. Again, lots of debris. But also lots of good spare parts. That's a spare 32 volt charger, very old but still works. Lots of spare bilge pumps, good thing. Fuel biocide. And hydraulic filters. The vessel has, if I did my measurements correct, they're odd shaped tanks. 4 tanks, approximately total of 1,800 gallons. I've heard 3,000 gallons. The survey said 2,000 gallons. I don't know what that sound is. I believe it's a bilge pump. Anyways, this is an Onan 12 kW generator. Supposedly it is repairable. CO2 fire extinguisher. All fire extinguishers need to be recertified. These are the batteries, house batteries. and they're near end of life. I think they're about 8 years old. Spare air compressors. Spare Jabsco seawater pump, I believe. Freshwater pump. The holding tank is underneath here. This is one of the diesel tanks, steel. Back to our aluminum. I believe someone's working out on the dock. I think that's the sound I was hearing. This is a discharge for the seawater pump. And it's a 105 amp, 32 volt alternator. All belts are really loose, but supposedly that's the way you want them. You seem a little bit on the loose side to me. It's an air filter. And I believe this is, I want to say turbocharger. Starter. Oil filter. This is another hydraulic pump right here. That's solely for the steering. And that's the Jabsco seawater pump. There is no coolant in this engine, which surprised me. I'm told that NC Machinery has said you do not want to use coolant in here or it will destroy, I forget what Mike said. So they use just water. There's the level right there. So anyways, there's the filter for the steering hydraulics. And 2 more filters there for hydraulics. I don't know. Oh, one must be for one tank and one must be for the other tank. I'll have to trace all of this stuff out more. Here's a freshwater fill for the coolant. All this linkage right here is for the shifting and throttle of the engine, which can be done, you'll see up above at the lower pilot house or the upper pilot house. And it's operating this mechanism here. Pump up the injectors, diesel right here. Start button. A lot has to be done before you hit that start button though. And oil change pump. That is the air pressure. There's also another duplicate gauge up above, and that's oil pressure for the transmission. Here's the mechanism for operating the controls. That bucket is just an overflow for the diesel tank of the little day tank for the oven, diesel oven stove. These are the cranking batteries. I forgot to show you on the other side. They are very new with switch underneath, which is off. So you have to turn that on before you can along with a whole bunch of other things before you start the diesel. And all the through hulls are shut, I believe. There's one over here, which you can't quite see. That's for the seawater pump. I apologize for kind of going all over the place here. That's a Raycor filter. That's a pump for pumping up the day tank of the diesel oven. Air hose here with, which you can use for tools, I would imagine, and right now it has a air nozzle on it. This is a manifold for the diesel tanks. So each tank has a valve that are shut. So you pick which tank you want, you open that valve, and then this valve takes a suction off of the what would be starboard forward tank. This valve takes a suction off of the port forward tank, and then this valve takes a suction off of both aft tanks. You just choose which valve you have open. You can also hook up a hose here and just get direct diesel straight out of this valve. There's 5 life-saving immersion suits up here. They also need to be recertified. This particular diesel tank, all of them you fill through the deck. There's deck fittings up there, and they just overflow on top of the tank, so don't overfill them. What was I gonna say? Oh, this particular tank has a separate tank inside the tank that's used right here to fill with about 30 gallons of motor oil. It takes about 10 gallons to change the oil on this engine. I should push this in a little more. And I believe that's it for here. You can leave the engine room here. But we're going to go back up through the fiddly and lock everything up as we go back out. Really quickly, I have to trace this out. I'm not sure exactly what this is. It's 50 amps. Looks like somewhat newer wire. 10 gauge. I don't know. I'll have to trace that out. This is the filter for the day tank on the diesel stove. Probably not approved PVC, Schedule 40 PVC piping off of the seawater pump. If that broke, it would just flood the boat. Also, the diesel lines are not type 1A US Coast Guard approved. They definitely need to all be replaced. Alright, I'm going to shut it off for a second. See you up topside.